told my daughter I won't attend her wedding if her biological father is there. Now, she's blaming me for ruining her life. I'm really struggling with a situation involving my daughter's upcoming wedding, and I could use some outside perspective. For some background, years ago, I went through a traumatic experience that resulted in an unexpected pregnancy. It was one of the hardest times in my life, but my husband stood by me through everything. He supported me when I decided to keep the baby, and he raised her as his own. However, it wasn't always easy. Our daughter, Luna, looks very different from the rest of our family, and over the years there were a lot of comments and whispers that made things even harder. Because of my struggles with the past, Luna naturally became closer to my husband, and he's always given her a little extra to make up for what I couldn't provide emotionally. We never told her the full story of her biological father, choosing instead to keep things simple and protect her feelings. A couple of years ago, Luna took a DNA test and ended up reconnecting with her biological father. Despite my discomfort, I supported her choice to explore that relationship. After all, she deserves to make her own decisions. But now, with her wedding approaching, she's made a choice that I'm finding hard to accept. Originally, my husband, who raised her, was supposed to walk her down the aisle. Unfortunately, due to an accident, he's currently in a wheelchair, and instead of finding a way to make it work, Luna has decided to have her biological father step in. She believes it would fit the vibe of the wedding better. When we found out, my husband was heartbroken, and I was furious. I've made it clear that I don't want to be in the same room as this man, and while I've come to terms with her staying in contact with him, I feel completely disrespected that she's choosing him over the father who raised her. I told her I wouldn't be attending if he's there, and she accused me of holding on to the past. I feel torn. On one hand, I understand she wants what she thinks is best for her big day, but on the other, I feel my boundaries and the sacrifices my husband made should be respected. Has anyone else been in a situation like this? I don't know if I'm being unreasonable, but I just don't know how to move forward. Update 1 week later. Before I get into the update, I want to address something. A lot of people have asked why I never told my daughter the truth about her biological father. The honest answer? I was ashamed. For context, before I married my husband, I was very close friends with him. We grew up in a small community where our families were close, so close that our parents hoped we'd end up together. I never saw him that way until university, but eventually, I moved on and started dating my husband. However, I never completely cut ties with him because we had been such close friends. One night, I went over to his place to have a few drinks, something we had done before. But that night, things took a turn, and he took advantage of me when I was tipsy. I tried everything to hold him accountable, but his reputation protected him. Even people I loved, including my own mother, believed his side of the story over mine. The social pressure was overwhelming, and when I found out I was pregnant, I felt like my world collapsed. My husband stood by me through it all, and we eventually moved away to start fresh. When my daughter was born, my husband suggested therapy, but I was too scared of being judged again, so I buried everything and tried to move on. Looking back, I realized that wasn't the best way to cope, but it was all I knew how to do. Now, for the update. After reflecting on everything, I decided it was time to stop running from the truth and finally tell my daughter everything. I apologized for how I reacted to her suggestion of having him at the wedding, explaining that it wasn't about her, but rather how it hurt to see her replace the father who raised her. When she asked why I didn't want to be around her biological father, I told her everything. Our friendship, what happened that night, and how it changed my life. As expected, she didn't believe me at first, but I offered to show her court records if she needed proof. She looked conflicted, but agreed to process it. Later that day, she returned in tears, apologizing for not believing me. We held each other and cried. It felt like a weight was lifting, and for the first time in years, I felt closer to her. She even suggested a surprise outing to help me feel better, which I gladly accepted. But when I arrived at the restaurant, I was blindsided. She had invited him. She thought this would be a step in my healing journey, but the moment he reached out to touch me, everything came rushing back. I panicked and couldn't breathe. I don't even remember how I got to my car, but I called my son to come pick me up because I was in no state to drive. The next day, she called me, upset that I ruined her surprise. I told her how hurt I was that she would do this after knowing everything I had been through. She admitted she wanted me to get used to him because she plans on having both him and my husband walk her down the aisle and do the father-daughter dance. I told her that while I love her and respect her choices, I won't be anywhere near him. She was frustrated, saying she just wants her whole family there, but I stood my ground and ended the call. My husband is supporting my decision not to attend the wedding, but this isn't what I wanted. I know that if my other children find out, they will stand by me, which could lead to even more division in the family. One positive thing to come from all of this is that I finally feel ready to seek therapy and truly start my healing process. Second update 3 months later. Hey everyone, it's been a while since I last shared an update, and I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who reached out with support during such a tough time. I wasn't able to respond to all messages, but I truly appreciate them. First, some good news. My husband is walking again. He still uses a cane, but it's progress. We've been attending physical therapy sessions to help him regain strength, and seeing him happy and moving again has been amazing. I've also started therapy myself, and I can't even begin to explain how much it has helped. My therapist is incredibly kind and patient, and I feel grateful to everyone who encouraged me to take this step. I would have missed out on so much healing without it. On to what's been happening with my daughter. As many of you advised, my therapist also encouraged me to tell my other children about everything that happened. For reference, I have 3 older children, 30M, 27F, and 27M. My eldest had some idea of what happened, but the other 2 were completely unaware. I finally worked up the courage to invite them over for dinner a couple of weeks ago and told them everything, from how my youngest was conceived to what's been happening recently. There was silence, and I started feeling nervous, but then my daughter burst into tears. It was heartbreaking. My sons, on the other hand, were furious at my youngest and her biological father. They asked why I had kept this from them for so long, and I explained that I was afraid of how they might react. After dinner, my husband took them aside to talk, and my daughter and I stayed behind, crying together. Eventually, they left without saying much, and I didn't hear from them for a while, until last Wednesday. That's when I logged onto Facebook and saw that my older daughter had made a post calling out my youngest for turning her back on the man who raised her and for siding with someone who had caused so much pain in our family. My sons made similar posts, and suddenly, my inbox was flooded with messages. I don't like my personal life being public, so I asked them to take down the posts. They assured me they did, but I haven't checked to confirm because I deleted the app. Then, something unexpected happened. My youngest's fiancé and his mother came to my house to apologize. He told me he ended the engagement because he couldn't be with someone who treated her family that way. His mother expressed how disappointed she was in my daughter's actions and said someone like that wouldn't be part of their family. I was shocked, but also touched by the support. It's one thing to receive encouragement online, but experiencing it in real life felt surreal. I will admit, though, I'm sad about it because her fiancé was a genuinely kind and loving person, and I thought he'd be a wonderful addition to our family. As for my youngest, she's furious with me. She left me a voicemail saying I ruined her life. Her friends and fiancé have cut her off, and she feels completely alone. I feel awful because I tried so hard to avoid all of this, and I know exactly how it feels to be isolated and judged. But my therapist reminded me that while I was a victim, my daughter made choices that led to this. And as much as I know she's right, I can't shake this feeling of dread. I tried reaching out to my daughter, but when I called, her biological father answered, and I immediately hung up. He later left a message blaming me, saying my daughter is struggling emotionally because of what happened. It's been weighing heavily on me. My husband keeps reminding me to focus on my own well-being, and I'm trying, but I can't help but worry about her, especially with him in the picture. I don't know what's next, but I'm taking things one day at a time.